The red sun of Terminus 7 was setting. When the ships appeared in the sky, they were massive and dark like hungry birds. Blocking out the stars, Captain Dehan stood on the observation platform of the mining colony and watched them arrive. He did not look surprised. He had been waiting for this day. Next to him, Dr. Ha checked her data pad with quick fingers. 15 ships, she said quietly. Krell design military class. Mercenaries, Day replied. His voice was calm, but his hands gripped the railing hard. They finally sent someone. Mining colony on Terminus 7 was not much to look at. It had 50 buildings made of metal and concrete. 300 people lived there, most of them miners and engineers. They had come to this distant world 3 years ago, looking for rare minerals in the red soil. The work was hard and the planet was dangerous, but it was home now. The largest ship descended slowly toward the landing area. Outside the colony walls, its engines roared like thunder. Dust and rocks flew everywhere. You could see weapons on the hull, big guns that could destroy buildings with one shot. Should I sound the evacuation alarm? Asked Tae Woo. The security chief, he was a tall man with scars on his face from an old mining accident. His hand was already moving toward the control panel. No, De said firmly. No evacuation. Tell everyone to go to their emergency stations. This is what we trained for. He now looked at him with worried eyes. Day, those are Krell mercenaries. I have heard stories about them. They do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. I know, De said. But we are not leaving. Not this time. The ship's landing ramp opened with a hiss of hydraulics. Soldiers walked out in dark armor that looked like insect shells. They were not human. They were taller, with forearms and faces that looked like they were made for killing. In the center walked their leader. Vexter was famous across the galaxy. He had led mercenary armies for 40 years. He had destroyed colonies, overthrown governments, and made entire species surrender with just his reputation. His armor was decorated with marks for every victory. There were so many marks that the metal looked like it was covered in scars. He walked to the colony's main gate. His warriors spread out behind him, their weapons ready. From speakers on his armor came his voice, translated into human language by computers. Humans of Terminus 7, Vexter announced. His voice was deep and cold. You have been marked for removal. The Galactic Mining Consortium has purchased the rights to this world. You are trespassing. You have 1 day to leave this planet. Take only what you can carry. Leave everything else. If you are still here after 24 hours, you will be eliminated. Day activated the colony's communication system. His voice echoed across the open space between them. This is Captain Dehan. We reject your ultimatum. We will not leave. Vexter tilted his head like he had heard something strange. You reject. You are 300 humans with mining tools. I have brought 500 Kree warriors with military weapons. This is not a negotiation. This is a mercy. Take it. We have built homes here. They said we have buried our dead in this soil. We have children who were born under this red sun. This is our world now. We will defend it. The alien mercenary made a sound that might have been laughter. Defend with what I have studied your species. Human, you are weak. You have soft bodies and short lives. You break easily. You cry and beg. When death comes, I have ended 47 civilizations. Some of them were Warriors, some of them were powerful. You are neither. Leaving is your only choice. You do not understand humans. Day said, we have something you do not. And what is that? Beekster asked. His tone suggested he was bored. Now, resolve, Day answered simply. Beekster stared at the human captain for a long moment, then he turned away. 2 hours, he said, then I will teach you what happens to those who waste my time. The mercenaries returned to their ships. The engines roared again as they lifted back into the sky. They did not go far. They stayed in orbit, visible as dark shapes against the stars. Inside the colony, people gathered in the main hall. They were scared. Many of them were not soldiers. They were miners, engineers, farmers, teachers. They had families. They had children. Why are we not evacuating? A woman named John asked. She was the colony's doctor. Day, I have 37 children in my medical center right now. Are you going to let them die? We evacuated before, Day said quietly. Everyone in the room knew what he meant. 3 years ago, they had all been on a colony ship heading for a different world. Pirates had attacked the ships. Captain had ordered an evacuation. People had panicked. The escape pods had launched too early. Many people had died. In the cold space, Day had been the officer who had tried to organize the escape. He had failed. He had watched pods explode. He had heard children crying on the communications channel as their life support failed. The people who survived had found each other on Terminus 7. They had promised never to run again. We have a choice, Day continued. We can run and hope the next place is safe. We can run forever, always afraid, or we can stand here and fight for what is ours. Yes, we might die, but we might also survive. And if we survive, we will have something worth more than our lives. We will have our dignity. Yang Ho stood up. He was only 19 years old, a miner with strong arms and a young face. I am with you, Captain. Tell me what to do. One by one, others stood. Jai-sun stood. Ya stood. Tae-woo stood. The room filled with standing people. Then we prepared. Day said, we have 24 hours to turn a mining colony into a fortress. Hina, take your engineers and activate every defensive system we have. Tae-woo organized combat teams. Yang Ho, you and the miners know the tunnels better than anyone. Set up traps. Everyone else secure your families in the underground shelters. As people hurried to their tasks, Hayana stayed behind. Day, she said softly, do you really think we can win? Day looked at her. His face was tired but determined. I do not know if we can win, he admitted, but I know we can make them regret underestimating us. That will be enough. Outside, the red sun finished setting. The colony lights came on, small and defiant against the dark. Above them, the mercenary ships waited like predators. They did not know it yet, but they had made a terrible mistake. They had given humans time to prepare, and humans, when given time and a reason to fight, were capable of extraordinary things. The countdown had begun. Vexler stood in his command ship and watched the clock count down. Around him, his officers prepared for the attack. They checked weapons, reviewed maps, and organized troops. Everything was routine. Everything was professional. They had done this hundreds of times before. 2 hours, Vexer said to his second in command. That is how long this will take. The humans have no military ships, no orbital defenses, no heavy weapons. We will land, eliminate resistance, and secure the facility. Simple, yes, Commander, his officer replied. Shall we offer surrender terms? Again, no, Vexler said they had their chance. Now they will learn why species do not refuse me. When the countdown reached 0, the landing ships dropped from orbit like falling stars. They came down on all sides of the colony, surrounding it completely. Ramps opened, and Krell warriors poured out there, weapons charged and ready. Two watched them from the colony walls. Here they come, he said into his radio. All teams, hold your fire until they reach the markers. The Krell advanced in perfect formation. They were professional soldiers moving with confidence and precision. They had superior weapons and armor. They had overwhelming numbers. This should have been easy. The first trap activated when the lead squad reached the old mining field. The ground beneath them exploded upward. It was not a military explosive. It was mining charges, the kind used to break apart rock, but rock and flesh were not so different. When the explosion was strong enough, 5 Krell soldiers disappeared in fire and dust. The others scattered looking for cover, but there was no cover. The mining field was open ground, and humans had spent 24 hours placing charges every 10 m. Now, Teu shouted. More explosions rippled across the field. The Krell formation broke apart as soldiers dove away from the blasts. They tried to advance through the chaos, but with every step more ground exploded from the colony walls. Human defenders opened fire. They were not military rifles. They were mining lasers, industrial cutting tools, and hunting weapons, but they worked. Krell armor could stop bullets, but a mining laser designed to cut through solid rock could burn through almost anything. Vexler watched from his ship in disbelief. What is happening? He demanded. Why have we not breached the walls yet? The humans have trapped the entire approach, his officer reported. We have lost 30 soldiers already. They are using mining equipment as weapons. Mining equipment. Vexler felt anger rise in his chest. Push through. We have 500 warriors. They have civilians with tools. The Krell regrouped and charged again. This time they moved faster, trying to cross the kill zone before more traps could activate. Some of them made it to the colony walls. That was when they met Yang-Ho, the young miner. Had spent his whole life in tunnels. He knew how to move underground, how to appear where enemies did not expect. He had spent the last 24 hours connecting every tunnel, shaft, and maintenance passage into a network beneath the colony. When the Krell reached the walls, Yang-Ho was waiting in a tunnel directly below them. He set off his charges. The wall did not fall. Instead, the ground under the Krell soldiers collapsed. They fell into the darkness, into tunnels filled with more traps, more explosives, more angry humans who refused to die quietly. Yang-Ho moved through the tunnels like a ghost. He knew every turn, every shaft, every weak point in the rock. The Krell did not. They stumbled in the darkness with their sensors, confused by magnetic ore in the walls. Yang-Ho and his miners picked them off one by one. On the surface, the battle became chaos. The Krell could not understand why this was so difficult. These were not soldiers. These were not warriors. They were just humans, soft and weak humans who should have broken already, but they did not break. Guy worked in the medical center in the underground shelter. Wounded defenders came down in waves. She worked on them with quick hands, patching wounds and sending them back up, But she did more. Then heal, she coordinated information. Teu, they are gathering at the north gate, she said into her radio while stitching a wound. Looks like they are bringing heavy weapons. Hina, can you redirect power to the north defensive grid? 2 asked. Done, Hina replied. She sat in the engineering center surrounded by screens and controls. Her fingers flew across keyboards managing every system in the colony. She had turned the mining facility into a weapon. Doors became traps, ventilation became gas, delivery systems, even the lights became tools flashing in patterns designed to confuse Krell vision. The battle continued for hours. The Krell kept attacking, the humans kept defending. Bodies fell on both sides. The colony walls were scorched and broken. Buildings burned, but the colony did not fall. As the red sun began to rise again, Vexter received the reports. There were bad, very bad casualties, he asked. 200 dead, 50 wounded, his officer said quietly. Commander, we have lost 40% of our ground forces in 12 hours. Vexter said nothing. 40% against miners, against civilians, against humans who should have surrendered. They are using guerrilla tactics, the officer continued. Traps, ambushes, hit and run attacks. They have turned their entire colony into a weapon. Every tunnel is a death trap. Every building has a firing position. They fight like they have done this before. Humans are not warriors, Vexter said, but his voice was uncertain. Now, humans are they? Officer replied. Vexter made his decision. Pull back all ground forces. We will bombard from orbit. If they want to die with their colony, we will grant their wish. The Krell warriors retreated, leaving their dead behind. The humans did not celebrate. They were too tired, too hurt, but they had survived the first attack. Captain Day walked through the colony, looking at the damage. Buildings were destroyed. The walls had huge holes. Small fires still burned. He saw defenders slumped against walls, exhausted. He saw Jai Sunan working on a wounded miner, her hands covered in blood. He saw Young Ho emerge from a tunnel covered in dust and carrying an empty weapon. They will come from space now, Hayana said, joining him. She looked exhausted. Orbital bombardment. Our walls will not stop. That I know, Dee said. Did you find what I asked you to look for? Hina smiled, tired but satisfied. Yes, underneath the colony in the old ruins, there are power signatures, ancient defensive systems built by whoever lived here before us. I think I can activate them. How long? Already done, Ha said. When their ships start firing, they are going to get a surprise. Above them, the Krell warships moved into bombardment position. Vexter gave the order. Energy weapons charged, targeting computers locked onto the colony. Fire, Vexter commanded. Beams of energy lanced down from space. They were powerful enough to vaporize buildings, to melt metal, to turn stone into glass. They should have destroyed the colony in seconds. Instead, they hit an invisible barrier and scattered like light through a prism. The ancient shield generators buried beneath Terminus 7 had awakened. After thousands of years, the colony was protected. Vexter stared at his screens in shock. That is impossible, he whispered. They are miners. How did they find shield technology down in the colony? Day allowed himself a small smile. Because we are humans, he said too. No one in particular, and humans do not give up ever. The siege had begun. Bexar had expected this to be easy. He had expected humans to be weak and frightened. He had been wrong, and now, for the first time in his long career, he understood that he might have made a terrible mistake. The humans were not going to surrender. They were not going to run. They were going to fight with everything they had for as long as they had to fight. And that made them dangerous in a way Vexor had never encountered before. In his command ship, the great mercenary leader felt something unfamiliar, something he had not felt in decades. He felt doubt. Siege lasted for 3 weeks. Vexor's ships circled Terminus 7 like predators, waiting for prey to weaken. They could not break the shields with their weapons, so they tried a different strategy. They would starve the humans out. They blocked all supply ships from reaching the planet. They jammed all communication signals going out. The colony was cut off from the rest of the galaxy, alone and surrounded. Vexor waited. Humans needed food and water. Eventually they would have to surrender, but days passed and the colony did not call for terms. Weeks passed and still the shields remained active. Vexor did not understand. His information said the colony had supplies for 2 months at most. After 3 weeks, they should be desperate. They should be begging to negotiate. Instead, the colony seemed to grow stronger. Lights still burned at night. Defenders still manned the walls. It made no sense. What Vexor did not know was that he had found more than just shields in the ancient ruins. She had found water purification systems. She had found underground gardens with strange plants that still grew after thousands of years. She had found storage chambers filled with preserved food from a civilization long dead. The ruins had been a city once, built by someone who had prepared for a siege. We can last 6 months with what we found, Hyena told Captain Day. Maybe more if we are careful. Then we have time. Dai replied, time to plan, time to learn about our enemy. Too had been studying the Krell warriors, every attack, every movement, every tactic. He took notes and built patterns. They are professional soldiers, he told his team. But that means they follow patterns. They fight the same way every time. If we can predict them, we can beat them. On the 23rd day of the siege, Vexor made a decision. He needed to know what was happening inside that colony. He needed information, so he ordered a capture mission. Take prisoners, he told his strike team. I want to know how they are surviving. I want to know what they are planning. Bring me a human who will talk. The strike team landed at night in a damaged section of the colony wall. They moved quietly using stealth technology to avoid sensors. They were the best warriors Vexor had experienced and deadly. They found a human patrol and attacked quickly. The patrol fought back hard, but they were outnumbered. 3 humans died. 1 was captured. His name was Sang Woo, Captain Day's second in command. They brought him to Vexor's ship. Sang Woo had wounds on his face and his hands were bound, but he did not look afraid. He looked angry. Vexor studied the human. Sang Woo was in his 40s with gray hair and old scars. He had the look of someone who had seen too much violence in his life. You are going to tell me how you are surviving, Vexor said. You are going to tell me where you are getting food and power. You are going to tell me your defenses. If you cooperate, I will let you live. If you do not cooperate, you will suffer. Sang Woo spat blood on the floor. You think you are the first person to threaten me? I Grew up in the Seoul underground during the food riots. I watched my parents starve so I could eat. I worked in asteroid mines where one mistake meant death in vacuum. I survived the colony ship disaster that killed half my friends. You are just another monster. A long line of monsters. You do not scare me, then you will die painfully. Vexer said. Everyone dies, Sang-woo replied. The question is what you die for. Vexer tried threats, he tried pain, he tried promises. Sang-woo told him nothing. Instead, the human talked about other things. He talked about human history. Do you know what humans have survived? Sang-woo asked through broken lips. We survived ice ages that covered our world in frozen death. We survived plagues that killed half our population. We survived wars where we tried to destroy ourselves with nuclear fire. We survived being hunted by animals bigger and stronger than us when we had nothing but rocks and sticks. That was long ago, Vexter said. You are soft now, civilized, Sang-woo laughed. And it was not a pleasant sound. Civilized, we are 3 generations from eating each other when food runs out. We are one disaster away from going back to killing for survival. Civilization is not what makes humans weak. It is the mask we wear to pretend we are not still the same desperate animals that crawled out of caves and decided to conquer a world. You are conquered now, Vexter pointed out. Are we? Sang-woo asked. You have been here for 3 weeks. You have lost half your forces. We are still fighting. Tell me, Mercenary, who is conquering who? The words bothered Vexter more than he wanted to admit. He left the interrogation room and checked his reports. The numbers were worse than he thought. Not just casualties, morale. His warriors were tired. They were frustrated. This was supposed to be easy. This was supposed to be over. Days, now they were stuck in a siege with no end in sight, losing soldiers to an enemy that refused to give up. That night the humans launched a raid. 2. Led it personally along with Mida, the colony's pilot. They had studied the enemy ships for weeks and found a weakness. They attacked the main command ship's reactor with magnetic charges stolen from mining equipment. The explosion was not big enough to destroy the ship, but it was enough to power failed across multiple systems. Emergency lights came on. Alarms blared everywhere. Vexter ran to the engineering deck and saw the damage. It would take weeks to repair. Weeks. They did not have. His contract had a time limit. If he did not complete the mission soon, he would lose his payment. Worse, he would lose his reputation. How did they do this? He demanded. They infiltrated through the waste disposal system. An engineer reported. They used the same stealth approach we used on them. They learned our tactics and used them against us. Vexter felt something cold in his chest. These humans were not just defending, they were adapting. They were learning, they were becoming better. At war with every passing day. He went back to the interrogation room. Sang-woo was still there, bruised and bloody, but still alive, still defiant. Your people attacked my ship, Vexter said. Good. Sang-woo replied. Did they hurt you? Why do you not surrender? Vexter asked. The question came out before he could stop it. It was not a tactical question, it was genuine confusion. You are outnumbered, you are outgunned, you cannot win. Why do you keep fighting? Sang-woo met his eyes. Because we have been underestimated before by empires and warlords and alien races who thought Humans were weak, we have been conquered, enslaved, nearly wiped out. We are still here, we are still fighting. You are not special, Vexter. You are just another chapter in a long book of things that try to break us. And failed. I have destroyed 47 civilizations, Vexter said quietly. Then we will be number 48 that survives. Yu Sang-woo said, or you will kill us all and learn nothing. Either way, you will remember us every time you look at your casualties list. Every time you see the scars we gave you, you will remember that humans do not break easily. Vexter left the room. For the first time in his long career, he went to his private chambers and thought about abandoning a contract. He had never failed before. Never, but this was different. These humans were different. His officers came to him the next day. Commander, the crew is talking about retreat. They said, we have lost too many warriors. The cost is too high. If we retreat, we break the contract. Vexer said, we lose our reputation. No one will hire us again. If we stay, we might lose everything. An officer replied, these humans are not normal. They fight like they have nothing to lose, like death is just another obstacle to overcome. Vexter looked at the planet below. The colony still glowed with lights. The shield still held. After 3 weeks of siege, the humans were still there, still fighting, still refusing to accept defeat. He thought about Sang-woo and LT Unk and GT's words about human history, about survival, about resolve. He thought about his own casualties, about the warriors who would never go home, about the cost of underestimating an enemy. For the first time, the great mercenary Vexter felt something he had never felt before. He felt fear, not fear of death, fear of something worse, fear that he had finally found an enemy he could not defeat, and that enemy was 300 humans who simply refused to quit. Vexter made his decision on the 30th day of the siege. There would be no retreat, no surrender. He would take the colony or die trying. He gathered his remaining warriors, 250 soldiers who had survived the grinding war, and prepared for one final assault. We end this today, he told them. We land all forces at once. We breach the walls. With everything we have, we do not stop until the colony is ours or we are all dead. His warriors prepared for battle. They checked weapons. They said prayers to their gods. They looked at the planet below and wondered if they would survive the day. Many of them doubted it. These humans had proven to be far more dangerous than anyone expected. Inside the colony, Captain Day received the warning from Yun Ho, the communications officer. They are preparing a full assault, she said. All ships are moving into position. This is it. Day gathered his command team, Hanateu Jizun, Yang Ho and Mita. They all looked tired. 30 days of war had marked them. Scars, burns, exhaustion in their eyes. But they were not defeated. They were ready. We have been studying them for a month. Day said, we know how they move. We know how they think. We know their tactics and their weaknesses. Today we use everything we have learned. Today we show them what happens when you underestimate humans. To spread maps on the table. They will come from all sides. They will try to overwhelm us with numbers, but we know their battle protocols now. Yunho cracked their communication codes last week. We can hear everything they say to each other. More than that, Yunho added with a tired smile, I can send false orders on their channels. I can make them think Their commanders are telling them to retreat, to advance, to regroup. I can create confusion. The shields are at 40% power. Hyena reported they will not last through a sustained bombardment. But I have rerouted power from non-essential systems. If they try to blast through, it will take them longer than they think. The miners are ready, Yang-ho said. We have new traps. Set up new tunnels, new surprises. Let them come underground. We will bury them. Medical is ready, Jian said. We have supplies for mass casualties. I have trained everyone in basic field medicine. We will not lose people to wounds. We can treat. Mita, the pilot, had the most interesting news. I repaired one of their drop ships that crashed near the south wall. It is flight ready. If things go bad, we have an escape route, but I have a better idea for it. What idea? Dee asked. Mita grinned. They think all humans are on the ground. They are not expecting an attack from the air, especially not in one of their own ships. Day looked at his team. These were not soldiers. These were people who had learned to fight because they had no choice, and they had learned well. One more thing, De said. I have been talking to Sang-woo through hidden channels. Vexler has kept him in their brig. He has been observing their ship, their routines, their security. When the attack begins, he is going to cause problems from inside their command ship. How to? Asked. He did not say. Do replied, but I trust him. He will know what to do. The assault began at dawn. Krill's ships descended like a dark storm. They landed everywhere at once. Hundreds of warriors poured out, weapons firing. The final battle had begun, but this time the humans were ready. Yunho sat in her communication center with headphones on. She listened to Krill battle chatter and smiled. Strike Team 3, your commander orders you to advance through the East Tunnel, she said in perfect Krello language. Through their own communication system, the Krell team obeyed. They entered the East Tunnel. It was filled with explosive charges. Yang-ho triggered them from below. The tunnel collapsed, taking 30 warriors. With it, West forces fall back to regroup, Yunho said into another channel. The West attack stalled as confused warriors retreated when they should have been advancing north. Command, your shields are failing. Return to ships immediately, she said. The northern assault broke apart as Krell soldiers ran back to their landing craft, abandoning their positions. Vexler realized what was happening. They are in our communications, he shouted. Switch to encrypted channels. But changing channels in the middle of battle created more chaos. Warriors could not coordinate. Squads lost contact with command. The organized assault became a confused mess. On the ground, Tae led his defenders with precision. He knew where the enemy would be before they arrived. He had studied Krell tactics for 30 days. He knew their playbook. Every advance was met with prepared defenses. Every flanking attempt walked into an ambush. The humans fought with the confidence of people who knew exactly what their enemy would do next. Ina turned the colony itself into a weapon. Doors closed at the right moments, trapping Krell soldiers. Ventilation systems pumped out gases that confused their sensors. Mining lasers activated remotely, cutting through armor. Every system, every tool, every piece of equipment became part of the defense. In the sky, Mita took off in the stolen Krell drop ship. She flew it straight at the command ship. Krell sensors saw it as friendly. They did not fire. By the time they realized the mistake, she was already inside their defensive perimeter. She launched every missile the dropship had at the command ship's engine array. The explosions were massive. The command ship lurched in the air, losing altitude. Emergency systems struggled to keep it from crashing. Inside that ship, Sang-woo had waited for this moment. The explosions created chaos. Guards ran to their stations. In the confusion, Sang-woo broke free. He had been working on his restraints for days. Now he moved through the ship, opening airlocks, sabotaging systems, creating more problems for an enemy already in crisis. On the battlefield, the tide turned completely. The Krell had come expecting to overwhelm. Instead, they were the ones being overwhelmed. Human defenders appeared where they should not be. Attacks came from unexpected directions. Orders were confused. Communication was chaos. Every advantage the Krell had brought was stripped away. Vexthor watched his assault fall apart. His carefully planned attack had become a disaster. His warriors were retreating. His command ship was crippled. His prisoner was loose and causing havoc. Everything was going wrong. He made a decision. Then, if his warriors could not take the colony, he would do it himself. He put on his combat armor, took his personal weapons, and left his ship. He would lead from the front. He would show these humans what a true Krill warrior could do. He landed near the colony's main plaza. His personal guard followed him. 12 of his best warriors. They fought through the defenders with brutal efficiency. Vexthor was not just a commander. He was a warrior who had survived 4 decades of combat. He cut through the human defenders, moving toward the command center. Captain Day saw him coming. "He is mine," Day said to his team. He picked up his rifle and walked out to meet the mercenary leader. They faced each other in the plaza. Battle raged around them, but for a moment everything else seemed to stop. The human captain and the alien mercenary, the defender and the attacker, the man who refused to surrender and the warrior who never failed. "You have fought well," Vexthor admitted. "Better than I expected, but it ends now." "Yes," Day agreed, "it does." They fought. Vexthor was bigger, stronger, faster. He had better armor and better weapons. He had decades of combat experience, but Day had something else. He had 30 days of studying this enemy. He had a month of learning every weakness, and he had the absolute conviction of someone defending his home. The fight was brutal and quick. Vexthor was wounded. His guard was dead or scattered. He found himself on his knees, his weapon gone, facing a human who held a rifle pointed at his head. In that moment the great mercenary understood. He had lost not because humans were stronger, not because they had better technology. He had lost because humans simply refused to accept defeat. They adapted, they learned, they fought with a determination that transcended logic and reason. "Do not underestimate human resolve," Vexthor said. The words came out with difficulty. Blood ran from wounds in his armor. "That is what you tried to tell me at the beginning. I should have listened." Day lowered his weapon slightly. Around them the battle was ending. Krell warriors were retreating to their ships. The assault had failed. The siege was broken. "You can kill me," Vexthor said. "I have earned that death, but let me give you something in return. Let me take your message to the galaxy. Let me tell them what I have learned here." "What message?" De asked. "That humans are not weak." Vexthor replied, that they do not break, that anyone who comes here looking for an easy victory will find only blood and defeat. Let me spread that warning. Let me save others from making my mistake. Day considered for a long moment. Then he nodded. Go, he said. Take your warriors and leave. Never come back and tell everyone what you learned here. Beekster stood slowly. He looked at the human colony, damaged but undefeated. He looked at the defenders, exhausted but victorious. He looked at Captain Day, a man who had refused to run. They will hear about this, Beekster promised. The whole galaxy will hear what happened at Terminus 7. The mercenary gathered his surviving forces and left. Their ships lifted into the sky, damaged and defeated. The siege was over. The colony had survived. 6 months passed. The wounds healed. Slowly, but they healed. The colony on Terminus 7 rebuilt its walls. They repaired the damaged buildings. They buried their dead and honored their sacrifice. Life returned to something like normal, though everyone knew that normal had changed forever. Captain Dehan stood at the memorial they had built in the center of the colony. 23 names were carved into the stone. 23 people who had died defending their home. He visited every day just for a moment to remember. Captain, it was Yunho. There is a message coming in. Galactic Council frequency. Dave followed her to the communication center. The message was an official summons. The Galactic Council wanted to speak with him. They wanted to hear about what happened at Terminus 7. 3 days later, Day stood before the council. On their central station, representatives from a 100 species filled the chamber. They all wanted to hear the story of how 300 humans had defeated the galaxy's most feared mercenary. Tell us, the council leader said. How did you survive? Day thought about how to answer. He could talk about tactics. He could talk about the shields they found or the traps they built, but that was not really the answer. We survived because we decided to, he said. Simply, we could have run. We could have surrendered, but we chose to fight. We chose to defend what was ours. That decision, that choice to never give up, that was what made the difference. The council members whispered among themselves. One of them, a tall being with blue skin, spoke up. But you had no military training. You had inferior weapons. You were outnumbered. How could will alone be enough? Because humans have survived worse, they replied. We have been facing impossible odds since before we left our home planet. It is what we do. It is who we are. The council debated for hours. Finally, they made an offer. They wanted Day to help train other colony defenses. They wanted to learn from what happened at Terminus 7. They wanted to understand how to build that same resolve in others. I will help, Do agreed. But I will not leave my colony. My people need me. There, send me students. Send me those who want to learn. We will teach them on Terminus 7, in the place where we proved that determination can overcome any odds. The council agreed. Within months, Terminus 7 became something unexpected. It became a training ground. Species from across the galaxy sent their people to learn from the humans, to learn how to defend with limited resources, to learn how to fight with ingenuity instead of overwhelming force, to learn what human resolve really meant. Shayana opened an engineering academy. She taught students how to turn civilian equipment into defensive tools, how to find resources in unexpected places, how to use intelligence and creativity when raw power was not available. Students came from dozens of worlds, and they all learned that technology was only as good as the mind using it. Tay trained security forces. He taught them that knowing your enemy was as important as having good weapons. He taught them to study, to learn, to adapt. His training programs became famous across the frontier. Train with Tewu became a mark of excellence for security officers. Everywhere the colony grew, new buildings rose where old ones had fallen. More humans came wanting to be part of something special, wanting to live in the place that had become a symbol. Terminus 7 was no longer just a mining colony, it was a legend. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Vexter kept his promise. The mercenary traveled from world to world. He visited mercenary guilds, warlord courts, pirate stations, anywhere that soldiers of fortune gathered. He always carried the same message: do not accept contracts against humans. He would say, I made that mistake. I lost half my forces. I lost my reputation. I learned the hardest lesson of my life. At first, people laughed at him, the great Vexter. Defeated by humans, it seemed impossible. It seemed like a joke, but other mercenary companies tried. They took contracts against human colonies. They thought Vexter was just unlucky, that he was too old, that he had lost his edge. They thought humans would be easy targets. They were wrong. A pirate fleet attacked a human mining station near the Andromeda border. The humans had only 30 people and no military ships. The pirates expected easy plunder. Instead, they found themselves in a 3-day battle against defenders who used every trick, every trap, every creative solution they could think of. The pirates lost 2 ships and retreated with nothing. The humans lost no one. Mercenary company called the Red Suns took a contract to remove a human farming colony from disputed territory. They brought 200 soldiers. The farmers had agricultural equipment and determination. The Red Sun spent 2 weeks trying to breach the colony's defenses. Before they gave up, they lost 70 warriors to an enemy that had never fired a gun before. 6 months ago, story after story spread. Every time someone attacked humans, they learned the same lesson: humans were not easy targets. They were not weak. They were not afraid. They fought with a resolve that made them dangerous, far beyond what their technology or numbers suggested. Vexter's warning started to be taken seriously. Mercenary guilds began refusing contracts against human targets. Pirates avoided human colonies. Warlords looked for easier prey. Reputation spread. Humans were too costly to fight. In a cantina on a trading station, a young mercenary approached Vexter. The old warrior sat alone, his armor still marked with scars. From Terminus 7, Commander Vexter, the young mercenary asked. I have heard the stories, but I thought they were exaggerated. I have a contract. Opportunity, simple job, remove a human settlement from a disputed mining world. The pay is excellent. Would you be interested? Vexter looked at the young warrior. He saw himself from 6 months ago, confident and certain that humans were weak. He felt something like pity. Let me tell you what I told the Krell. High Command, Vextor said slowly. Let me tell you what I told the Vaxen. Cartels in the Shadow Fleet. Find another target. Find another species. Find anyone else in the galaxy to fight. But not humans. What? Why? The young Mercenary asked, "What makes them so special?" Vexter was quiet for a moment, then he spoke, and his voice carried the weight of hard experience. "Because humans do not know how to quit. You can wound them and they will keep fighting. You can outnumber them and they will find a way to win anyway. You can have better weapons, better armor, better technology, and they will still defeat you. Do you know why?" "No," the young mercenary said, "because they have something we do not," Beekster replied. "They have resolve, real resolve, not just courage or stubbornness. It is deeper than that. It is in their history, in their culture, in the way they see the universe. They have survived everything their own world threw at them, and then they survived everything space threw at them. They are survivors at a fundamental level, and that makes them the most dangerous beings in the galaxy, more dangerous than Krell warriors." The young mercenary asked skeptically. "I'm a Krell warrior," Vexer said. "I have fought for 40 years. I have destroyed civilizations, and 300 human civilians defeated me, not because they were stronger, because they refused to accept defeat. So I will tell you one more time, find another target." The young mercenary left without taking the contract. Vexter sat alone and thought about Terminus 7. He thought about Captain Day, about Sang-Woo, about all those humans who should have died, but chose to live instead. He had learned his lesson. He would never forget it. On Terminus 7, the red sun set again. Captain Day stood on the observation platform where he had first seen the mercenary ships arrive. Now the sky was filled with ships of a different kind, trade vessels, student transports, visitors from across the galaxy coming to see the place that had become a symbol. Ine joined him. "We have 3 new training groups arriving tomorrow," she said. "Representatives from the Tailais Confederacy, the Bren Assembly, and the Free Colonies. They all want to learn." "What do we teach them?" they asked. "We teach them what we learned," he now replied, "that walls and weapons are not enough, that technology and numbers are not enough. We teach them that the will to survive, the refusal to accept defeat, that is what makes the difference." "Do you think they can learn it?" Day wondered. "Or is it something only humans have?" He smiled. "I think anyone can learn to fight for what matters to them. We just showed them it was possible. We showed them that determination can overcome any odds." Below them, the colony lights came on as darkness fell. The walls they had rebuilt stood strong. The gardens they had planted grew green in the red soil. Children played in streets where battles had raged. Life had returned to Terminus 7 stronger than before. The memorial stood in the center of the colony, lit by eternal flames. 23 names remembered forever. They had died defending their home. They had died proving that humans would not break, would not bend, would not surrender. Their sacrifice had taught the galaxy a lesson that was spreading from world to world, from species to species, from the core systems to the far frontier. Never underestimate humans. Never assume they will give up. Never think they are defeated until they stop breathing. Because humans have something that makes them unique in the galaxy. They have resolve, and that changes everything. The story of Terminus 7 became legend. Parents told it to their children. Soldiers studied it in training. Historians wrote about it.